The alien widow who freed a human, and found love among earthly things. They called her the widow of 9 moons. He was a slave with nothing left to lose. But in the cold silence between stars, they found something no war could destroy, love. The stars had long ceased to inspire awe in Commander Aelira Veth. They glittered coldly beyond the curved hull of her ship, the solace of 9 moons, like 1,000 indifferent eyes. Once, she had flown among them with pride, serving the Tarthan Dominion, until her husband's death at the hands of humans ended all that pride. Now she drifted on the edges of occupied space, a widow in exile. Her uniform was gone, replaced by plain trader's garb. Her vessel carried only silence and the ghosts of memory. Yet destiny has an odd sense of irony. For the first human she ever saw after the war was not an enemy, but a slave. The bazaar of Keth Prime stank of iron, dust, and despair. Aelira walked its narrow lanes with her cloak drawn close, her 4-fingered hand resting lightly on the weapon at her hip. She had no wish to be recognized. Traders shouted in dozens of tongues. Cages lined the shadows. Inside them, creatures of many worlds huddled, smugglers, prisoners, and the unlucky. The Tarthan Dominion forbade slavery, but on Keth Prime, law was as thin as the air. Aelira paused before a cage marked Lot 47. A human sat within, his wrists bound by dull metal restraints. His head was bowed, hair matted and unkempt, a dark bruise flowering on his temple. Fresh from the Terran sector, the slaver crooned. Strong male, labor-bred. A good worker, or perhaps, entertainment. Aelira's chest tightened. For years she had blamed humans for her husband's death, savages who had resisted Dominion peace. Yet the sight of this one, beaten and silent, stirred something she had thought buried. "What is his name?" she asked. The slaver shrugged. "Calls himself Daniel. Not that it matters. He'll forget soon enough." Aelira studied him. His gaze lifted briefly, and in that moment, their eyes met, human brown against Tarthan silver. There was no hatred in his face, only exhaustion. She heard herself say, "I'll take him." Back aboard her ship, Aelira released the locks around Daniel's wrists. The metal fell away with a soft clink. "You are free," she said simply. He stared at her in disbelief. "Free? Why?" "Because no being deserves a cage," she replied, turning away. "You may rest. There is food in the galley." For several days, Daniel spoke little. He ate sparingly, slept long hours, and watched her from a cautious distance. Aelira gave him space. She busied herself repairing the ship's aging systems and trading at minor ports, pretending not to notice his silent presence. But one evening, she found him in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "They're different from Earth," he murmured. "Colder somehow." Aelira hesitated before joining him. "Stars are the same everywhere. It is the hearts beneath them that change." He smiled faintly. "That sounds like something from a book." "Perhaps. My husband used to say it." The smile faded. "He died, in the war." She nodded once. "A human fleet destroyed the carrier he commanded." Daniel lowered his eyes. "Then why save me?" Aelira considered. "Because vengeance is an emptiness. I lived with it too long." Silence fell between them, broken only by the hum of the ship. Somewhere beyond the viewport, a comet arced across the void, a brief, fragile flame against eternity. Weeks passed. Aelira and Daniel fell into quiet companionship. He repaired machinery she could not reach, she taught him the alien language of the ship's systems. Slowly, the walls between them thinned. One day, Daniel entered the cargo bay carrying a small metal case. "I found something in the supplies you bought on Corvus Station," he said. Inside were seeds, earth seeds, labeled in faded English. "Basil, tomato, sunflower. Do you think they'd grow?" he asked. Aelira blinked. Here. In vacuum-sealed corridors. He grinned. If we make a small hydroponic patch, maybe. Just a corner. She considered refusing. But something in his eagerness disarmed her. Together they converted an unused storage room into a garden, a tiny oasis beneath artificial light. Daniel rigged nutrient lines, and Aelira calibrated the moisture levels. Days later, the first shoots appeared, fragile green stems trembling toward the glow. Aelira stared at them as though seeing life for the first time. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "They're earthly things," Daniel said softly. "They remind me of home." From then on, they spent their evenings in the garden, talking about everything and nothing, about Earth's oceans, about Tarthan moons, about the strange, shared ache of loss. And when Aelira laughed for the first time in years, Daniel realized how rare that sound was, like music remembered after silence. Peace never lasts long among the stars. One night, as they passed through a narrow trade route, an encrypted transmission reached the solace of 9 moons. The crest on the message made Aelira's blood run cold, the sigil of the Dominion fleet. "Commander Aelira Veth," the voice intoned. "You are ordered to surrender. You harbor a human fugitive. Compliance will ensure leniency." Daniel's face went pale. "They'll kill you for helping me." "Or worse," she said grimly. He stepped forward. "Let me go. You can say you captured me, they'll believe you." Aelira shook her head. "I will not trade one cage for another." The ship shuddered as the Dominion cruiser locked weapons. Warning lights flared across the console. "Engines to full," Aelira commanded. "We run." The pursuit that followed was brief but desperate. Plasma fire lit the void as Aelira wove through debris fields and asteroid belts. Daniel manned the auxiliary thrusters, his hands steady despite the chaos. A final burst of acceleration flung them into a dense nebula. The enemy sensors lost them in the magnetic storms. For hours, they drifted in silence, the ship's systems battered but intact. When at last the danger passed, Daniel turned to her. "You could have left me. And you could have run," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Guess we're both terrible at letting go." The garden had grown by the time they reached the rim world of Aranis, tall green stalks bending under the ship's recycled breeze. The scent of basil filled the air, blending with the hum of engines. Aelira often found Daniel there, tending the plants with quiet care. His hands, once scarred from labor, now cradled life. "Why do you do this?" she asked one evening. He looked up. "Because growing something means you believe there'll be a tomorrow." She studied him, this fragile creature from a distant world, who had somehow rekindled her faith. For years, she had worshipped strength, discipline, and empire. Yet here was a kind of strength she had never known, the courage to nurture, to forgive, to begin again. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. His fingers curled around hers, warm and human. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Aelira whispered, "Among all the stars I have seen, none shine like this." Months later, they reached the Soul Frontier. By now, the war was officially over, a fragile treaty signed between the Dominion and the United Terran Confederacy. Daniel gazed at the blue sphere on the viewscreen, his voice trembling. "Home." Aelira felt an ache she could not name. "You should go," she said quietly. "Earth will need people like you to rebuild." "And what about you?" "I will go where the stars are quiet," she replied. "Widows belong to silence." He stepped closer. "You're not just a widow anymore." Aelira looked at him then, really looked. In the lines of his face, the warmth of his eyes, the life she had thought impossible. "I do not belong to your world," she murmured. "Then let's make one of our own," he said. For days, she wrestled with the decision. She could stay in orbit, let him go, and vanish again into exile. It would be easier, safer, quieter. But every time she walked past the garden and saw the green leaves trembling under the artificial light, she remembered his words, growing something means you believe there'll be a tomorrow. On the final morning, she found him preparing the shuttle. You were right, she said. I do not belong to Earth. His shoulders slumped. Then this is goodbye. No, she whispered. We'll plant a new garden. He turned, disbelief and joy warring in his eyes. Together? Among earthly things, she said, smiling. Wherever they grow. Years later, travelers on the rim world of Aranis would speak of a strange homestead on the cliffs, a small dome surrounded by green fields that should not have existed in such thin soil. The wind there carried the scent of basil and the hum of old machinery. Sometimes, when night fell and the twin moons rose, a silver-skinned alien woman could be seen walking beside a human man, their hands intertwined. Above them stretched the same indifferent stars, yet now, they seemed a little warmer. In their garden grew earthly things, plants from a blue planet, tended by a pair who had both once been lost. And in that quiet corner of the galaxy, love, improbable, defiant, and human, took root among the stars.